Right, Mark, we're live on
Hi, Neil.
Facebook for the first time ever. So, hello, everybody. I'm Neil from Link. This is the first time that we've tried to do a live broadcast. It's amazing what social isolation does to you, I think, in these times, embracing all these new ways of being able to engage with people. This is the kickoff of our 10 Minutes with Link series. I'm going to be talking with our partners and customers over the coming weeks just to get some thoughts about how Link's working for them, and really just to continue the conversation about getting through COVID, really. So to kick things off, I invited Mark Simon from iTools to join me for the very first time. So Mark, thanks very much for being the guinea pig. And yeah, maybe kick off by just introducing yourself and iTools.
Sure. Yeah, pleasure. So iTools is a software company. We provide work management software to utilities and telecom network operators. And the software is all about helping operators digitally transform their asset-based work management processes. So iTools might be used, for example, to help them build the network, or once built, to help them operate and maintain that network. It can be applied to any of those underlying processes and work programs to help them essentially improve their delivery performance and reduce operational costs.
Okay, so you're selling a piece of software then, I guess. So
Yeah.
where does Link fit into that whole equation? You know, given what we do as a tool, I'm really interested.
Link bridges the gap basically between the problems that our customers are having and the potential for iTools to help solve those problems. So Link's brilliant at being able to put those problems and opportunities in plain sight and define the benefits that will accrue if the customer seizes those opportunities and makes the required changes. It's also really good at being able to objectively compare different opportunities, so side by side, and so that the customer can prioritize the projects that will deliver the best return on investment, and that's really important for us, because with a typical utility there might be over 30 potential areas where iTools can add value. So if we can help the customer essentially understand where they're going to get the best ROI from, we can help to sort of help them prioritize those projects and roll out iTools into the best areas, those that are going to offer the biggest return first. So really it's all about, the customers being able to see that value, prioritize those work programs, and deliver the best ROI. And of course, leaving Link with the customer, it's obviously not just about the iTools domain in terms of work management. The customer will be using Link on any type of process and any type of transformation initiative. It might have absolutely nothing to do with iTools downstream.
Yeah, that's great, because we've got a few utility customers, and I was wondering, as you were talking there, do the customers inside the organization for you, do they have this generic problem set that we see across utilities? The fact that the assets aging, the human assets aging, the workforce is getting older, they're being hugely impacted by climate change, the move to electric vehicles, local grids, all of this technology opportunity that they have as well, drones for managing the asset. So does Link and iTools kind of ultimately end up fitting into that space and maybe enabling that conversation to go higher?
Yeah, very much. For example, one day we might be helping them with a very old process that they've been doing for donkey's years, something like, I don't know, replacing poles. And the next minute we may be part of a conversation around wind farms or the impacts of DERs. So it's it's that whole sort of combination really of the new and the need to transform themselves, but also the common theme that's running through all of this is essentially being able to deliver more with less. You know, they're all under competitive pressure, but they all need to know that they need to continue to invest in their network, invest in new technologies, and obviously a key enabler in that is to be able to work smarter and to be able to automate some steps and some processes that are currently done manually. So it's definitely about sort of transformation, but in a lot of cases it's really about transformation of some processes that have existed within that utility for decades.
Right. No, excellent. So if I can take you back to towards the end of 2018, if we can think back that far, that's when you and I first had a conversation. I think you'd been at a GE event somewhere and had bumped into somebody talking about Link, and you followed it up. And I remember emailing you going, "Oh, you're in New Zealand," because it's always exciting, talk to local people. There's too many of us, expats coming here. What was it that drew you to, follow up with what you'd seen and heard, and then ultimately sign up as a partner? What was what do you think you saw in Link?
Yeah. Sure. I mean, first of all, it was the strangest thing, because I essentially had to travel 12,000 miles to hear about a solution that was essentially down the road.
Yeah.
So that was weird in itself. And when the name Link cropped up, I put it away. I'm thinking I'll take a look at that when I get home a couple of weeks later, and at that point in time, it was just it was a bit of a passing comment. But when I saw it, it was immediately obvious, because we weren't aware of it. I mean, there isn't an alternative solution as far as we're concerned, and we were basically we'd looked long and hard, and we took and once we found Link, we looked even harder before we were obviously confident enough to start introducing it to some of our customers. But to give you an example, I was chatting to a customer just a few weeks ago, and I thought they described it really well. I won't mention the name of the solution, of the process modeling solution that they were using, but it's well known. Anyway, he was saying how you do all this modeling, and then at the end of it, apart from a nice visual representation of your process, what do you really know? For example, do you know where the waste is in your current activity, and what that's costing you? Do you know what the potential monetary upside is if you remove that waste, and what specifically needs to change in terms of the process and the people involved and the systems that are being used and need to be used to make those changes? And what I saw with Link, the key difference is that it helps you answer those questions.
No, excellent. Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm biased. Yeah, I've looked at.
I think I am now as well, but that's not such a bad thing.
No,
given we've done our homework and we've been living and breathing this stuff for more decades than I care to admit to, we'd almost sort of stopped looking, to be honest. There's nothing out there that does what our customers need and what we need. And then it was, as I say, it was the strangest thing that I had to go 12,000 miles to find the answer.
No, definitely. Well, you did your due diligence, because it took 6 months before we could actually get the paperwork signed. And I remember you and I having plenty of conversations about some scenarios you were running and that kind of thing. And, we still do that today, right? You're a very keen ambassador of Link from a usage perspective, and always feedback things that we're doing and ideas that we come up with. So, I don't think that due diligence is stopping, which is fantastic, because that's what we need. So I am interested, here we are, we're living with COVID. We've have organizations who are being forced into digital transformation, whether they were ready for it or not, whether it was on the radar or not, whether they like it or not. You know, they are having to change, even if it's suddenly a remote workforce accessing systems that are on premise. You know, there's a classic challenge for the IT team and the management team to overcome, thinking about information security and all that kind of thing. How do you see Link being used in times like this from your perspective and the customers that you're dealing with, given they're going through all of this as well? The value, what is the value proposition for Link without us becoming ambulance chasers? Because I
think, I mean, first of all, I think digital transformation as a term has been massively sort of overused and almost abused over the last few years. But what this horrible situation that we're stuck in the middle of at the moment has really demonstrated is that there's going to be winners and losers. And those organisations that are managing to survive, and some are even thriving at the moment, what they've got in common is that they were more prepared in terms of being able to embrace a digital world and being able to enable their workforces to work remotely and all that stuff that a lot of them have been talking about and probably convinced themselves that they were ready for. But none of us ever imagined that it was going to be such a harsh, dramatic shift, and that all of that, business continuity plan stuff that they'd written down, they were going to have to essentially enable literally within a matter of days. And I think what it's going to do is it's going to mature the conversation, which is fantastic. As far as we're concerned, take some of the hype out of it. But also, it's almost going to be like this second wave of activity that comes through, because now there's not a CEO in the world that's not having to sort of, I guess, critically look within their own organisation and say, what could we have done better? How better prepared could we have been? And what lessons are we going to learn? And how are we going to ensure that if let's hope it never happens.
But when
it happens again, we are better prepared. So I think solutions like this, where you can, like Link, where you can essentially model change and consider different options and understand how different sort of transformation based initiatives are going to have to happen. That all sort of comes to a head, and it's already starting to happen, because I think what we've seen over the last week or so, we've sort of moved out of over the shock phase, if you like, of what the heck's happening here, to really thinking about what is life going to be like when when some of these barriers and restrictions are lifted in certain parts of the world. Obviously, that's already starting to happen. So it's really all going to come down to the winners long term are going to be those organisations that really sort of learn the harsh lessons from this and really figure out how to really sort of change and become more digital organisation.
Yeah, I was looking on LinkedIn a bit earlier, and there was a comment about the fact, we are in the digital economy, but now talking about the pixel economy. And I thought it was a really neat term to use. It's not necessarily about the bricks and mortar risk assessment, health and safety of people being on work site only. It's that at that pixel level. And I think it's quite a nice way of thinking about this. We've got to get our pixels aligned, right? So that
true.
We as a business, we can operate in this new environment. And people have been calling it the new normal, to the point you just kind of sigh when you hear that term now, but it's a reality, right? Nothing's going to be the same. So, hey, so Mark, given everything that you're doing right now, where do you really see the value add for Link is inside your customer base?
Yeah, so I think the first thing that you notice is that it's definitely quicker to model your processes in Link than using other tools. But to me, that's not really the big value add. The big value add is in those deep insights that automatically get created as a result of you basically creating the model. So what customers really like is how you can look at those insights from 4 different perspectives, or as I like to say, through 4 different complementary lenses. So with Link, as well as the obvious sort of process lens, if you like, you can look at those insights through the systems lens, through the people lens, and crucially through the information lens. So with systems, you get answers to questions like what systems, obviously understanding what systems do we currently use, which are working well, which can we use better, and which do we need to replace. And then with people, similarly, which teams are involved, how much of their time is being consumed, how can we make them more productive, and really importantly, what impact will this change that we're considering have on the roles and the skills that we need within the organisation. And then in terms of that information lens, so first off, it basically tells you what information and data assets are you creating, which amazingly is something that a lot of organisations have got no register of, no idea. How can we better manage those assets? Because essentially that's how they need to think of them. They need to think of them as being highly valuable assets that are just as valuable as plant and machinery, for example. And most importantly, how can we better monetize or get more value out of those assets? And I mean, personally, I'm not aware of any solution that can provide those insights without a huge amount of heavy lifting, pulling all that information together.
Yeah, something I'm hugely passionate about is your comment about managing information as an asset. I think I'm a good friend of Doug Laney, who wrote the book Infonomics, and I know you've read that. Doug put a slide up some years ago at a summit saying he was talking to an organization and they were saying, "Oh no, we do asset management for the important things," and he went to the bathroom and the urinals had asset numbers on. But their information asset, there was no formal definition of them as an asset. And he said, "Isn't that really interesting? What our perception of value is? You've got this content which is really helping your business function. It's the lifeblood. And if you took all of the data and information out of a business, I argue there isn't an organization left. There's just people sat around with some technology, kind of waiting to do something because they don't know what to do and they can't produce anything." And yet the urinals have got an asset number connected to the asset management system. They'll have a maintenance schedule. Someone will come and check them every day. And you go, well, hang on, that's the behaviors you should be applying to your information asset as well. So
totally. To me, it's you just look at enterprise value these days, and the reason you don't find the majority of enterprise value on the balance sheet is because it's not tied up in tangible assets. It's in intangible assets. It's in information, data, knowledge, those other systems which have historically sort of been considered somewhat sort of incidental and almost the information is almost a byproduct of doing the work and the process. But what Link does is it obliges you to essentially say for every action, for every piece of activity, what's the output, and the output has to be defined in terms of information, because how else are you going to define it? So that's to me, that's a classic example of how the Link language drives better behavior, because otherwise, if you're using another process modeling tool, you're essentially just linking a bunch of activities and workflows together. And at no point do you actually say, well, this work that I'm doing here and this step in the process, what's the point of it? What's the value creation? And the value has to be defined in terms of the information asset that's being generated as a result of doing that work, and then that asset is then used further upstream, further downstream on that process by somebody else who picks it up and says, "Thank you very much for creating this piece of information. Now that's what I need to do my role in this process." So it's totally obvious once you get it. But it can take a few hours with a customer who's sort of stuck in their ways and they've learned some very bad habits, to get them to sort of appreciate the value of information and data and all that intangible stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think maybe we try and find a silver lining to COVID, maybe this is one of these events which will actually help organizations understand this is something that they do have access to. And if they do just think slightly differently, they can use that knowledge to thrive through this situation, as opposed to
totally.
just, lying back. So hey, anyway, I've taken up enough of your time. Thank you so much for joining today.
Thanks, Neil.
Yeah, stay safe as we come out of level 4. And when we're level 2 and there are some Air New Zealand flights between Auckland and Wellington, maybe we can catch up and have a good chat over a flat white somewhere instead.
Sounds good. Awesome. I think a cold beer sounds even better.
Absolutely, certainly does. All right, mate. Lovely. Thanks for taking the time, Mark. Appreciate it. And we'll catch up again soon. All right.
All right. Bye.
See you.